Hey Walking Dead fans, let's talk about that night. You know the one I'm talking about. The night we all sat there, hearts pounding, as Negan played his twisted game of eeny, meeny, miny, mo. The night we lost Glenn. Remember how it felt? The shock, the disbelief, the anger. For many of us, it was like losing a friend. Glenn had been with us from the very beginning. He was the heart of the group, the moral compass, the guy who always found a way to make us smile even in the darkest times. But let's break it down, shall we? First, there was the build-up. The whole season had been leading to this moment. We knew someone was going to die, but Glenn, come on. He'd already had so many close calls. Remember the dumpster fake-out? We thought surely they wouldn't do this to us again, but they did, and man, was it brutal. The scene itself was a masterclass in tension. The moonlit clearing, our heroes on their knees, Negan swinging Lucille with that sick grin on his face. And then, well, you remember the sickening thud, Glenn's eye, his final words to Maggie, "I will find you." I don't know about you, but I couldn't sleep that night. Social media exploded. Some fans swore they'd never watch the show again. Others praised the bold storytelling, even as they mourned. But here's the thing. Glenn's death wasn't just shocking. It was a turning point for the entire series. It showed us that no one was safe. It set the stage for the war against the saviors. It changed our survivors in fundamental ways. So, here we are. Still talking about it, still wondering, what if? What if Glenn had survived that night? How would the story have changed? Who would we have lost instead? That's what we're here to explore today. Are you ready to dive into an alternate Walking Dead universe? A world where Glenn lived to fight another day? Let's go. What if Glenn didn't die that night? I know, it sounds impossible, but stick with me here. Picture this, Negan's bat is coming down, we're all holding our breath, and then, bam! Something unexpected happens. Maybe Daryl makes a crazy dive and pushes Glenn out of the way. Or imagine a bunch of walkers stumbling into the clearing at just the right moment. Hell, what if Maggie suddenly goes into labor and even Negan isn't heartless enough to kill a dad-to-be? Wild, right? But let's run with it for a second. Think about everyone's faces. Rick, Maggie, even Negan. Total shock. Negan's whole "I'm the boss" act totally ruined. And Glenn, man, he'd be a mess of relief, guilt, and probably a whole lot of confusion. But here's where it gets really interesting. How would Glenn react after nearly dying? Would he become super protective of Maggie and the baby? Or maybe he'd go the other way and become reckless, feeling like he's living on borrowed time? And what about the group's fight against the saviors? Glenn's always been the voice of reason, right? The guy trying to find a peaceful solution. But after almost getting his head bashed in, would he still be that guy? Or would he be the first one calling for Negan's blood? These are the kind of crazy what-ifs we're diving into today. We're gonna reimagine the whole Walking Dead story from this one changed moment. One man survives, and boom, everything's different. So, you ready to explore this wild alternate Walking Dead world with me? Let's see where Glenn cheating death takes us. Alright, Walking Dead crew, we've saved Glenn. Awesome, but we've got a problem, a big Negan-shaped problem. See, Negan's not the type to just shrug and say, oh well, maybe next time. Nope, someone's still gotta go. So the million-dollar question is, who's it gonna be? Let's play a little game of apocalypse roulette, shall we? First up, we've got Abraham. Big, tough, mouthy Abraham. He was Negan's first pick in our world, remember? Maybe without Glenn in the mix, Negan focuses all his rage on our ginger soldier. Can you imagine? Suck my nuts might still be his last words, but this time, they carry a whole lot more weight. Or what about Daryl, our brooding, crossbow-wielding badass? He's a fan favorite just like Glenn. Losing him would be a gut punch to the group and to us, plus think about how that would mess with Carol. Yikes. Here's a wild card. What if it's Maggie? I know, it's horrible to even think about. But remember, Negan's all about making a statement, killing a pregnant woman. That's a whole new level of evil. It would change everything for Glenn, for the group, for the entire show. But hey, maybe we're thinking too obvious. What if Negan goes totally off script and picks Eugene or Aaron or even Carl? Whoever it is, one thing's for sure, Glenn living means someone else isn't. And that death, it's gonna ripple out and change everything. Alliances, motivations, the whole war with the saviors, it all gets flipped on its head. So, what do you think? In this twisted version of musical chairs, when the music stops, who's left standing and who takes the fall? Buckle up, survivors. This alternate Walking Dead is about to get real messy. Alright, let's cut to the chase. Glenn's alive, now what? First up, Rick. Our fearless leader's whole submission then rebellion plan, totally different now. With Glenn in the mix, Rick might not break so easily. We could see a much quicker uprising against Negan. Maggie's story, complete 180. Instead of grief-fueled leadership, we'd see her and Glenn tackling parenthood in the apocalypse. Talk about family drama. And Negan? Oh boy, his whole intimidation tactic just backfired. He'd be scrambling to reassert dominance. Expect him to be even more brutal to compensate. Daryl's guilt trip over Glenn's death? Gone. But so is a major part of his motivation against the saviors. How would that change his role? The Hilltop arc, totally rewritten. No grieving Maggie taking charge. Maybe Glenn steps up instead? Bottom line, one survivor changes everything. Alliances, strategies, character arcs all flip upside down. This butterfly effect would ripple through the whole series. Ready to see how deep this rabbit hole goes? Alright, TWD fans, let's dive into the crazy world of what-ifs you've cooked up. Theory 1. The Daryl Switch fans reckon Daryl might be taking the bat for Glenn. Result? A totally different Daryl-Negan dynamic. Imagine Daryl in the Easy Street cell instead. Theory 2, Glenn the Savior. Some wildcards think Glenn might be joining Negan to protect the group. Glenn as a conflicted savior? Now that's a twist. Theory 3, Maggie's revenge arc. Without losing Glenn, fans speculate Maggie's leadership would have evolved differently, maybe less ruthless, more diplomatic. Theory 4, the Carl lives butterfly effect. A popular one, Glenn's survival somehow leads to Carl surviving too. 2 deaths avoided, infinite possibilities. Theory 5, Alexandria Hilltop Alliance fans theorize an earlier, stronger alliance between communities with Glenn alive. Could they have taken down Negan faster? Remember folks, these are just theories, but in the world of The Walking Dead, anything's possible. Which one's your favorite? Got any wild theories of your own? The floor's yours. Alright, TWD fans, let's talk baddies. Glenn's alive, how does that mess with our villains? First up, Negan. Our bat-swinging psycho just lost his big moment. No Glenn pancake means his fear factor takes a hit. Expect a more unhinged, desperate Negan trying to prove he's still top dog. The Saviors? They're in for a shock. Their invincible leader image? Cracked. This could lead to earlier descent in the ranks, maybe even some defections to Rick's side. Now, what about other villains? The Whisperers, for instance. With a stronger, less traumatized group facing them, Alpha might need new tricks. The whole heads on spikes thing might not hit as hard. And let's not forget internal conflicts. Alexandria versus Hilltop tensions could fizzle out with Glenn playing Peacemaker, but new beefs might crop up. More survivors mean more opinions, more clash potential. Bottom line, Glenn living doesn't just save a good guy. It rewrites the whole hero-villain dynamic. Every conflict, every showdown gets a fresh spin. So, Deadheads, which villain do you think would struggle most in this new world? The floor's yours. Well, Deadheads, we've been through one hell of a ride, haven't we? Let's tie this all together. We've seen a world where Glenn cheats death. Sounds great on paper, right? But man, the ripple effects are wild. One life save changes everything. Group dynamics, battles with baddies, even the heart of the show, all flipped on their head. But here's the million-dollar question. Would this alternate TWD actually be better? Sure, we'd have Glenn, but at what cost? Someone else bites the dust. Other characters might never become the badasses we know and love. It's like a zombie butterfly effect. One small change, a whole new apocalypse. In the end, The Walking Dead isn't just about dodging walkers. It's about how loss shapes us, how we grow, adapt, and find strength we never knew we had. Glenn's death? It was a game changer. Brutal, hell yeah, but it kicked off a chain of events that made our survivors who they are. So, what's the takeaway? There's no perfect version of this story. Every survival comes at a price. That's what makes The Walking Dead so damn gripping. Keep on surviving, Deadheads, and never stop asking what if, because in this world or any other, the possibilities are endless.